Hello, fellow students. Since we are going to be visiting Plymouth very shortly, we have a quick presentation on the colony and all the fascinating history that goes along with it. William Bradford, the governor of Plymouth and perhaps the most famous person in Plymouth history, besides Squanto. This guy arrived on the Mayflower with many other pilgrims in 1620. He was a very famous author who wrote many historical accounts, including Of Plymouth Plantation, Mort's Relation, and Journal of the Pilgrims of Plymouth. Bradford also had many distinguishing titles, including the forerunner of literature, storyteller of considerable power, and the father of American history. And yes, Thomas Jefferson also shared that last title.
Of Plymouth Plantation is William Bradford's most famous literary piece of work. This account is extremely important because it is the most authoritative account of the occurrences in the colony from when it was founded until the colonists officially gained a stronghold in the New World. Of Plymouth Plantation is a journal that tells us about the lives of the colonists and the struggles along with the achievements of the colonists from 1621 to 1649. But most importantly, this book has told generations and generations of people amazing stories about some of our earliest ancestors, stories about why the Pilgrims left to England, stories about meeting Squanto, Samoset, and all the other Native Americans, and stories about the first Thanksgiving, which to this day is an ongoing tradition. This is an excerpt taken from Of Plymouth Plantation, talking about the Pilgrims' decision to come out of America. They had a calling, quote, lawful and urgent, end quote, and even though the difficulties were many, they were not going to be invincible, because these people knew they would have the blessing of God, which, as we know, can overcome any hardship, no matter how difficult. The Pilgrims set a great example by showing us that if we have faith in God, He will protect us, even if we're traveling over 3,000 miles across the Atlantic in the wilderness.
The first Thanksgiving was definitely the most famous work from Bradford's journals, because he had such a descriptive storytelling of the event. After a long year of struggling through winter, the first Thanksgiving was a breath of fresh air for the Pilgrims. The Wampanoag tribe had taught them to fish, hunt, and farm successfully, which was very conducive to their new life, because they were very inept at living off the land when they had first arrived in America. So obviously these new skills led to a great abundance of food, in fact way more than the Pilgrims needed, which was a nice change compared to the small portions of food they were used to. Yet all of these little things, eventually leading up to the Thanksgiving feast, really set a new hopeful tone for the Pilgrims in America. The Mayflower Compact, written on the Mayflower, was the first self-governing document to be created and enforced in America. After arriving in the New World, the Pilgrims knew that they would need to form some sort of government, or the colony would fall apart before it even started. If they got off the ship with no guidelines or boundaries, everybody would have just done their own thing, and there would be no union. Therefore, on November 11, 1620, 41 men signed the document that would soon become the framework of Plymouth Colony. The main purpose of this document was to promote the colonists, better ordering and preservation.
William Bradford was intentional and knowledgeable of effective writing when doing so. For example, his journals utilized repetition and long syntax achieved by semicolons and conjunctions. The resulting effect was a prolonged, continuous, repetitive flow, representing the length of the arduous journey and efforts a pilgrim had to go through. The importance and significance of these words. All these literary works done in Plymouth give us a great sense of what these early American pioneers were like. Bradford's detailed journals in Of Plymouth Plantation gives us an in-depth view on the everyday lives and tasks of the Pilgrims. Thank goodness Bradford wrote these journals, because otherwise we wouldn't know any of the information we know today about these great people. We probably wouldn't know who Squanto is, what the Mayflower was, or even what Thanksgiving was. Furthermore, the Mayflower Compact gives us the idea of self-government and popular sovereignty and was the first American document to do so, which obviously worked because Plymouth soon thrived and became a strong province. Furthermore, the Mayflower Compact is a predecessor document which we can compare to our American Constitution and see how the earliest Americans thought a government should run. Quote, "We do by these presents solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one another by covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body politic for our better ordering and preservation." End quote. That is for the Mayflower Compact.
The contribution to our national identity. William Bradford's journals show us the language and the style that we speak and write in today, never mind spelling, is almost identical to how the Pilgrims spoke and wrote almost 400 years ago, which is remarkable because that confirms how similar we are in mind and thought. By studying these words of literature, we students can feel how the Pilgrims felt and understand how they had to struggle to eventually strive and succeed in the world. This further helps us appreciate how America is a persevering country that we are so blessed to live in.
Sadly, during the Plymouth era, literature was really struggle for the colonists and it never took a step forward compared to England because they were preoccupied with trying to gain a stronghold in the New World. But Bradford's works, including the Thanksgiving excerpts and the Mayflower Compact, are really all we need to see how the earliest pioneers thought, worked, and received.
The end.